All right, welcome back. You're still watching AM Live. In the spirit of the Democracy Day in Nigeria, which is celebrated every 29th May in Nigeria, we continue to have that conversation, democracy. But this time, we're turning our attention to a different social group, not the general polity. We're looking at the youth's involvement in governance in Nigeria. Youth have been called a lot of names: vibrant, intelligent, innovative, restive. All in fact good bad names. We've had that youth being called that, but recently, which is about 2 days ago, the former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, said that if youths are not included in governance in Nigeria, there is going to be an explosion. That the youths are already being they're already agitated, angry, and frustrated. So today we're turning our attention as a result of that statement to building a successor generation. We know that those who are in governance now are those who have been there for years, and youths are already there's an agitation for youth inclusiveness in governance and politics in Nigeria. And to help us have this conversation this morning on our topic, building a successor generation, we have Amuda Musibudi. He's a coordinator for African Rebirth Movement. He's also a public commentator. Thanks for joining us this morning.
It's a pleasure.
There's now a lot of conversation, around involving youths in governance. Recently, even in Zimbabwe, ZANU-PF, the leader of the ZANU-PF has said they're going to create some sort of space or allocation for youths to be, especially in the House of Parliament. They're going to create that space for youth. But when you look at Nigeria, we're not agitating for space to be created for the youth. It wasn't always like that. I mean, the youth were, when you look at the history of Nigeria, men like Shehu Shagari, men like Bafemi Awolowo, Yakubu Gowon, or Obasanjo, they were men who took position or offices at the age of in their 20s, early 30s. But now they are still the faces that we call leaders today. Why is there a gap, that wide gap between their generation and our generation?
We must look at it from two angles. We must look at it from the place of military rule. Don't forget that military rule actually was instrumental to truncating the lifespan of democracy in Nigeria. And as a result of that, those who would have gotten promoted or would have gotten themselves into the succession line could not do that, and so they had to be on the background. So what we had was a situation whereby between 1960 and 1966, those who were at the ends of affairs or of politics were also the ones that also resurfaced in 1979. And that's why if you look at aside the new entrants like Shehu Shagari, a larger percentage of those who contested in 79 were also those who actually were part of the First Republic politics. And when the Second Republic was terminated in 1983, now out of those who were also new entrants in 79 were the ones who were readily on ground to also play the Third Republic politics of the 80s under Babangida. And these were also the same persons who were at the forefront of the NADECO demands and of course the NADECO struggle. So they were readily on hand. In fact, it can be said that the Fourth Republic was delivered to their hands. So we have them. And what we now saw was that the Fourth Republic became a more of a payback for those who possibly died out in the struggle, or those who had given some level of commitment to the struggle but can no longer occupy any position. So it turned out to be a payback. So we had a Niyi Adebayo in Ekiti State, whose father, now late General Adebayo, can no longer vie for any political office. So, and that also was what you saw. And we had a Tinubu in Lagos State, who was a part of the Third Republic Senate and also a major financier of NADECO. We had the Segun Shoba, who was also a major player in the NADECO struggle. We had the Lam Adesina, who was a major player in the NADECO struggle. We had a Bisi Akonde, who was a major player in the NADECO struggle, and across boards. Now, in some other climes, for example in the Southeast, we had people who had played the politics of the Third Republic and were also part of the democratization process of the Abacha regime. So members who were, those who were members of GNPP, PRP and the likes, were the ones that now got themselves into the Fourth Republic. So what we had at the GNPP was that a larger percentage of the youth population then were disinterested in politics. But it was a realm where we had the older persons in politics. So what we now had was these old persons ensure that the whole realm of politics was within their own framework and did not leave them. So by 2003, when there was almost, an epiphany kind of, we had a new set of people who had also been, within the circle of powers. So what we only had was that there was a little incursion of some youths into politics. But these youths did not do exceptionally well to warrant. In fact, a larger percentage of other youths were still at the background, not interested in politics. The point at which what brought about, these old youth demands or involvement in politics was the era of, the evolution of social media. So with the era of the social media, or the new media as we may want to call it, there was a level of youth involvement, virtual though,
exactly,
and it created this level that, instead of having to come out and be afraid, I can say whatever I want to say behind my keyboard and still hide my face. So that virtual activeness gradually became translated into an actual activeness. So that explains the generational gap in our politicking mood.
Okay, but is there something specifically that they know that we don't? Because again, we have not been able to repeat that feat of having someone young at the helm of leadership. We know that in countries like Italy, Matteo Renzi, former Prime Minister Matteo Renzi, came into power at the age of 39. In France now we're having Macron, 39. Mark Rutte of Netherlands came in again in his early 30s. Obama came in at the age of 40. But it seems like that cannot be achieved in Nigeria.
No, I think we should also look at the constitutional framework. Don't forget that until the 1999 constitution was amended, the pendant age for the Senate was 40, and of course for House of Representatives was 35. And for you to be a governor too, you have to be, 35, and of course for a president you have to be 40. So this was a limiting factor. And
but isn't that an indication that there is no trust? When it comes to age, there's a reason of there's age limitation when it comes to age. That the Nigerian governance system do not trust anybody who is 35 and younger.
No, I don't even think so. I think it's just don't forget that the 99 Constitution is a carryover of the 1979 Constitution and the 89 Constitution. In fact, largely 1979 Constitution. And so it was the same psyche that was operational then. Don't also forget that at the birth of the Fourth Republic, we had very little youth population or youth participation in politics. In fact, councillorship positions were held by men in their 50s, in their 60s. So it wasn't a trend to see a young person in politics. I remember as a member of the AD in 1998, we had what you call the youth wing, and in the whole of the local government, Limosho local government at that time, the all youths that we had in politics as of 1998 were less than 30, who were below 35. So you had more of the older generation. It was after 1999 that we now started having younger persons coming into politics, because some of us felt, listen, this cannot continue. So we started a mobilization. And it was as a result of that mobilization that actually gave rise to youth involvement. And that was the same thing that you saw across boards. Most times, these political parties did not have youth wings until 1999. They do not have youth wings. So when there was no youth wing, the youth had to operate within the framework of the party structure, which does not give them any allocation whatsoever. So they were just seen as foot soldiers, not as persons who can be commanders, at the war front. The youths were given roles such as, okay, you will want to paste posters, so they are the ones to do that. okay, there is a need for us to perpetrate violence, they are the ones to do that. They were not seen as persons who could actually hold the reins of power. And that was a major issue that, of course, must look at as well.
All right, now let's take a quick break. And when we return, we'll continue this conversation on building successor generation with Amuda Mosibodi. Do stay with us. All right, thanks for staying with us. We're still having a conversation on building a successor generation, and that's coming from the statement made by the former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, where he said that if we do not start to prepare the youth to take over governance in Nigeria, there is going to be an explosion, that the youths are angry and frustrated. And we're still speaking with Amuda Mosibodi. We know that our fathers, and I call them fathers, our fathers fought with guns. That battle was with guns and, knives and sticks and cutlasses. But our generation, independence is a battle that has been fought with, it's a battle of the mind, and then information as well. When you look at the level and kind of discourse on social media amongst youth, not just social media, even national discourse amongst youth, do you think that we are going to do differently, or they were ready for what that which we're craving for?
Well, I do not think so, because if you actually follow discussions on social media, what to call trolling on Twitter, for instance, you would rather see that this the youthful generation is more of an angry one, and so gets angry at anything. Rather than engage in a discussion, you see persons resort to ad hominems, abusing each other, throwing tantrums here and there. And of course, there's also this one road argument. So if you throw up an argument, if this is my little idol, and then that person throws up an argument, then of course, if Napoleon says it, then Napoleon is always right. So and that's the same trend. So that boxer kind of mentality is what we have. And many times I ask, you see an headline, the headline to a news or a rider, and rather than read the body of the news, you fly with it. You hear something, rather than try and dot your I's and cross your T's, you fly with it. And that's the kind of generation. You have this laziness, this mental laziness, which will not help. So in view of that, and of course, where was this gotten from? It was also gotten from, our forebears, who would rather, dwell on, because of the same hero worshipping. And in that wise, we pick some individuals, we idolize them. In the southwest is Awolowo, so Awolowo is always right. In the southeast, of course, unfortunately, Nnamdi Azikiwe never enjoyed the same aura that Awolowo enjoyed, maybe because of his nationalist tendencies. But of course, okay, you say Ojukwu, then Ojukwu is always right. Oh, in the north you talk about Tafawa Balewa or Ahmadu Bello is always right. But then these persons are actually inherently flawed in some of their decisions and positions. But we would not look at that. So that generation had sold that kind of psyche to us. And of course, this generation seems to have bought into it. What I feel we need is a reorientation. There must be a renewed education. And as we say, when history is not taught in our classrooms, we will only breed individuals who suffer historical disconnection or historical dysfunctioning. And that is essentially what we are seeing. We have a set of youths who don't understand their historical background, and who don't understand it. And when you fail to learn from history, history will definitely repeat itself.
Okay, let me ask then. In 2014, we know that the movement, we think Nigeria, which is a body advocating for youth inclusiveness in governance, they sent a letter to the National Confab at that time, and I'm just going to quote a part of that letter. It said they were advocating for 30% representation of Nigerian youth in all political appointments at federal, state, and local government levels, irrespective of the political party in power. And that's what they were advocating for. What would be the implication of this, having 30% of youth in power? And then should we be at, is it about quantity of representation or quality?
I think it's even a lazy thing, and of course it's still following the same path of the same dimension of our discourse in Nigeria, where more of a federal character thing, a quota system, which is not going to help the system. I always make a reference to Macron, and I say that, when it was a gog on Twitter, Facebook, and the likes, and Macron is 39, and I said, listen, Macron never campaigned on the basis of being a youth. Mm-hmm. He had ideas, strategies, and of course he pushed for these strategies and ideas of his. He was always telling people, this is what I want to do, these are my plans, and people bought into it. French men and women bought into his into his ideas and strategies, into his manifesto. He did not campaign on the basis of being a youth. What we are doing rather on this part of the world and in this time is to rather campaign on the basis of being a youth. And the fact that you're a youth doesn't mean you have a new idea or creative ideas. In fact, most youths have worse ideas, and we've seen that play out. The case of Kogi State is very fresh in mind. Of course, when the governor was sworn in, it it was a joy that yes, we're going to have a youth at the ends of affairs in a state in the country. But 2 years down the line, the state has been worse off for it. We also remember Idimeji Bankole as Speaker of the House of Representatives, and of course that chamber suffered terribly under his administration. And we can begin to point out many other cases too. So it's not about just allocating, giving a blind allocation to youths. Then the question also that arises is, who is a youth? The normal trend of a man of 50 claiming youth, or a man above 50 claiming youth. So that also would arise. I feel that we should not talk about allocation. We should rather talk about equal platform. When that equal platform is available, then we can, of course, youth can, begin to, of course, join in the struggle for power. But to say that, oh, there should be this allocation, that's a lazy talk. Of course, it's a sign of laziness.
But even if we get the allocation that we're jostling for, which is 30% representation across board, do you think that we would have a good quality representation as against
I even doubt that quality representation, given the quality of persons who engage in discourse, on the new media. I doubt quality representation. These are people who are nothing but power mongers, political merchants and jobbers, and so would only seek to satisfy their own pecuniary interests above the interests of the nation. These are persons who consider their different party affiliations as being more important than the general interests of the people. So with such persons in power, I do not see any glimmer of hope.
Okay, let's take another quick break now, and when we return, we'll continue our conversation. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching AM Live. We're still having a conversation on building successor generation in Nigeria. And we went out to take the opinion of young persons as regards youth inclusiveness in governance. And here are some of the things that people said.
So the involvement of the youth in governance, recently the youth has not been practically involved in governance and democracy generally, because so many youths believe that they need money, before they could participate in anything called governance. They need money. If you give them 500 naira, they are okay to vote. But it's more than that. So we need people, young, vibrant youth that have intellectual to participate in this democracy. It's more than go to the polling center and vote, cast your vote and go back home, collect 500 naira or cup of rice and go back home. No, we have a lot to contribute. We have a lot to, to bring to the table in order to make Nigeria better. Somebody like me, it starts from me as well. I would say for the past, since I clocked 18 years, I've never voted before because I don't believe in this democracy we are practicing. But I've already resolved in my heart that even from my own local church, because I'm a Christian, from my own local church, I will raise people. We've already resolved. We have group in my church that we've already resolved that, look, we have a lot to contribute. If you leave them to just bastardize the whole thing, we still cry for it. We will suffer together. But when we know that, okay, this guy, I can vouch for him, I trust him, let's push him forward. Go and try. If it is councillorship, just go and try it. If it's chairmanship, just go and try. Then if you mess up, you can quickly call him back and rebuke him. But when you are voting for a total stranger, somebody you don't know, and he's just giving you, let's say, a cup of rice, at the end of the 4 year or how many years spent there, you still come back or it's nowhere to be found. You can't blame him for anything. Just blame yourself. So to me, I will encourage you that let us come together. Put somebody in the front and let us support him. Somebody you know that can do better. And if he's unable to do better, just call him back and look for another person. But I believe youth participation in democracy starts with an individual. If you have resolved in your heart that this is what I'm going to do, we get a better result in the future.
Youth involvement in the governance of this country, well, I can say 10%. And why it is like that is because the government that we have been having, and even plus the one of the days, have impoverished the mind and the brain of average Nigerian youth, to the extent that they don't see themselves as somebody that have the capacity to hold the public office, to be in the arms of affairs, rather than to be following all these politicians in the name of stipend that they are going to get from them. And I want to believe that the Nigerian politician made it that way because they want to be recycling themselves. That is why they're trying to kill the conscience of the youth and make them unable to think straight as a youth is expected to think.
I'm Alao John by name, and unlike some other part of the world, other countries rather, youth are involving actively in politics. But in our nation, Nigeria, it's so saddening. It's so saddening that even, okay, for instance, I can remember during the time of Awolowo, he started so early, at his early 20s, if I'm not mistaken. He has been participating actively in politics. But today, reverse is the case. Our good president is 70-something years, the Senate president, if I'm not mistaken, 50-something or 60-something years. But we youth, we constitute the highest population in the nation, in the country, and that is why I always say if we youth can come together as one, form a quorum whereby we can just nominate someone who could lead us. But the question is, are we youth not also corrupt? But I wish one day, some days, the table will turn and people like us, like me now, my dream is to become Nigerian president come 2035. And by then I could be the youngest ever to have contest for that seat. That is if they will allow me to get there.
Welcome back. We're still having a conversation on building a successor generation. You heard it from the people we had to speak with on the street and their opinion on why, whether the youths involved in governance or whether we're not involved and why we are not involved. And we're joined now by our second guest. He's Frederick Otite. He's a public speaker. Thanks for joining us this morning. Before you came, we were having we had a conversation on why we're not involved, the generation gap and all. But I'm just going to ask you, according to our respondents, one of them said, look, youth are already involved in politics in Nigeria, even in governance, because it's the same youth who go to vote, and they're the ones who do, like Muda would call it, they're the foot soldiers, are the ones who pave the way for these leaders. And then one other one said, youth are just basically lazy rather. We don't have the kind of mindset that is required to lead. And the last one said it's basically because of oppression from the elite. The elite has done everything they can to keep us down. So we're not able to act effectively. I mean, when you look at all of these reasons, do you agree with any one of them or all of them?
Well, I would be in partial agreement with some of those reasons. But according to myself, which I'm not apologetic about, I think I would agree that youths are involved in politics, but not in governance. Because we play a passive role when it comes to the real action. We are often used as pawns, the elders in the game use us to achieve their aims. We are the ones that do the job and get the win. They are the ones that hold the trophy. That is how it is. Because I think, like the person who said we are lazy, I concur to that a little bit. Some of us are lazy, some of us are not. But in the end, I think we have collectively mortgaged our future to these people. And when they wanted to buy our future from us, we helped them put it on sale. We even gave them discount, which is quite unfortunate. And we keep shouting and raising placards up and down. And towards every election, we lose our sense of focus and purpose again, mortgage our next 4 years, and it's just the same cycle over and over again. But
if we get the chance that we're canvassing for now, do you think that, because I mean, we all agitate for it, we all say it on social media, we would again say it today, eventually in any conversation we find ourselves that youth have to be involved. But if we get the chance that we're asking for, do you think that we have the vision required to accelerate the development of this country?
Well, as youths, if we get the chance, which I'm actually scared of, truth be told, because like I said, we have lost our sense of focus and purpose, which is the major problem we have. I sincerely think if we really want the chance, we can take it. We really can make things happen. We can agitate for it and get it. But we are too selfish, too myopic. We are so hungry for, it's the noodles mentality we use now. So we won't have time. We won't have the patience to go through due process to achieve what we ought to achieve. Even though we know our problems, we can prefer solutions on paper, but the time it will take for those solutions to materialize, we don't have it.
Okay, he mentioned a very salient point about having, we know the solutions to everything. Really, if you listen to discourse, it looks like we know the problem and then we prefer the solution. But how come, with all that we think we know, we are still where we are today as youth in Nigeria?
The reason is simple. He mentioned, this noodled, orientation, and of course, I would agree with that. If you look at the trend of discussion among youths on social media, particularly, you would see that one is this non-readiness for action. So you see people find it convenient. Go and see the level at which social media activism thrives. But when actual activism comes on board, they withdraw. So people can say, can trend a hashtag on social media. It's easy to do. Anybody, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can hide behind a keyboard and just say anything. But when it now comes to actual action, you see them keep quiet. you see them lash out at politicians, behind their keyboard. But when they see these politicians in the real life, they're the first to prostrate, seek a selfie with the politician, or even, some words of notes. So that tells you that there is a disconnect between our desires and, of course, our actual performance. And until there is a connection, there's a synchronization of the two, then we are going nowhere.
Okay, now, looking at the demographics, we are a social group, actually, but not just a demographic anymore. Just the way gender is, we are also now a social group as young persons. We're over 70% of the population. And because of that, people are saying, look, we have enough, we have the numbers to form our own political party. There's agitation for youth to go and form their own political party. At this moment, Frederick, do we have the political institutions to engage youth substantively, or do youth in Nigeria really need to go and form their own political party before they can take hold of governance?
Actually, there is no need for that. The only problem is that the elder statesmen that are supposed to initiate the youth into their caucus so that they can come into power peacefully. Let there be a transition from the old to the young, so that talk of energy, talk of innovation, talk of all that, we would be able to affect governance. But no, the disconnect he talked about is not just between our desires and our actual performance, but between the real deal and what we feel as youth. We find it hard to delay gratitude. We want something very fast. Like I would say, we voted this administration because we wanted a total turnaround overnight. Like, hey, fuel 15 naira per liter, food this, dollar rate come down, everything magical. So with that mindset, and these elderly people, they didn't just come into power, they came in as youths too. But our lack of readiness, our unpreparedness is why they take advantage of us and keep running the government.
But I'm going to come in. Do we need them? Do we actually, because these are the same people we complain about. We say, oh, they have wasted our resources in Nigeria. Do we actually need them?
Of course.
To bring us in, or we need to take hold of governance ourselves?
Okay, I'll say we need to take hold of government ourselves. However, we need their guidance because experience cannot be bought. There are some dicey situations that youthful energy can't just resolve. We need diplomacy, we need wisdom of the elders. The way our government is supposed to be is put the youth in charge, guide them, be in the background, let them know how to tackle situations. Issues we are facing right now is beyond youthful strength. Youths can't just tackle insurgents like it's like they want to tackle educational problems. We might be able to easily address education, but not security, not international relations. So I think we still need them, but in the background. They are supposed to be advisors. They are supposed to be the ones who are taking the role of special advisors, not honorable ministers, not senators, not president, not governors.
Okay, that's a very spectacular aspect to being a special advisor. But do you agree that we actually do need them?
Well, the truth is this. When you talk about political transition or build-up, there is a line, or there is a pathway. The pathway is that those who hold the reins at the moment also build successors. Now, these successors do not just haphazardly come into power. They learn on the job.
So strategic mentoring.
Exactly. So there is a learning on the job process. Unfortunately, and like you rightly said, that learning, now what we have are individuals who want to come into power, just like a sudden blast. Now, they don't want to go through that process to learn on the job. What is governance all about? Okay, what is security all about? Now, how do you tackle issues of economics when you don't even understand issues concerning GDP, inflation, when all you understand is that the news has relayed this particular item, and so you fly with it? When you don't understand how the chart flows, When you don't understand the essence of, why the connection between food prices and inflation, when you don't understand the connection between, inflation rate and of course price control or even interest rate. So you must learn on the job. And how do you learn on the job? You can only learn on the job by 1, grooming yourself. By 2, allowing yourself to be groomed. How do you groom yourself? How prepared or how well do youths of this generation read? How many of them do actually read? Rather, what you see are people who are looking for a summary. For instance, I've seen a lot of situations where students who are meant to write their BA, dissertation, go online, copy verbatim, and then paste it as their BA dissertation. So, how does such a lazy set of people graduate to become people who will be worthwhile in governance?
Okay, Frank, with what you see, I mean, he's raised a lot of points about the contemporary challenges that youth have, and the fundamental one basically is mental laziness, from what I see, and their willingness, to want to submit to learning. With what you see, and with all of that challenges, how long do you think it would take for us, to be able to get to where we need to be?
Well, I would say as long as it takes. As long as it takes, because there is no definite timeline for that. Until maybe we suffer long enough to realize that we are our own problems first, we are our own primary challenge. Then we can wake up, prepare, and then, see, God can break protocols, not process. Process is process. We will still need to pass through it, no matter how long. So if we decide that our 40 days journey is to be 40 years, there's nothing we can do about it. We will walk the walk. In addendum to what he said, look at Lagos State. There is that transition. You will see the effect of mentorship, purposeful mentorship. You see the understanding that I have driven the economy of Lagos to this point and focused on this. When you come in, you can continue this as you also incorporate this into your own agenda. Then the next person is also learning. This is where he stopped. This is where I stopped. This is where you come in, and this is what you show. So there is a blueprint of the leadership that is in line with, fine, there are always 1 or 2 times that we have
distortion.
Maybe, personal sentiment, personal intelligence and all that will come into play. But there is a guide, there is a blueprint. But generally, it's not like that. That's why people say if you can run Lagos, you can run Nigeria. But it doesn't really work like that. Because the general populace, we don't have that readiness. We don't even know we don't have it. We just feel we are vibrant. Everybody is, the people who talk the most are faceless. They can't defend what they say. They go on social media and type all sort of things, but they can't come out and defend it because they lack personal convictions about these things. The people carrying placards, the next opportunity they get a visa, they are out. So it will take us as long as it takes us to wake up from this slumber, realize, then go back to square one, start the journey afresh. But maybe due to the suffering, we can learn faster. I don't know.
Okay, just before I let you go, I'm just going to ask the both of you this. First of all, how do we scale this wall of exclusion and get into the field of governance? And then at what level do you think is appropriate for us to come in? Because some people are aiming for a presidency, some are aiming for parliament, but at what level is appropriate for us to come in, and how do we scale the wall of exclusion?
As regards scaling that wall, it's all about planning. Leon Trotsky says that the act of revolution is the application of correct tactics, and correct are those tactics that meet the current condition and time. What that means is that there is always a tactics for every situation. If you are not strategically positioned, you don't expect that you will scale that wall or you sail through. It is expected that beyond the social activism, which is quite faceless as it is, there must be your presence in the public. People must see you, and as regards to the time, there is no time that is no time, and so the time is now, and the time could be tomorrow, the time can be yesterday. So there is no time, there is no time. So essentially, what we need is that positioning. Are you well positioned for this step? So at what point can we come in? There is no point, that is no point. Okay, you can come in from the position of president if you think you are well positioned for that. You can come in from the position of governor if you think you are well positioned for that. But it must be understood that at times you do not contest to win, but you contest to make a statement.
Okay, quickly from you, Frederick.
Yeah, well, what you said about people aiming high is not wrong. The wrong thing is people aim for the office, not the responsibility. And you can't take hold of the responsibility if you have not been mentored, if you have not been exposed to some things. It doesn't necessarily have to be officially. You don't have to be a governor or a senator before you become president, but you should have been around that circle to have learned enough. By the time, like I said, you contest to make a statement, maybe the first time you contest, that brings you to limelight, lets people know, oh, some people are not aware of you will become aware, so they can support you the next time. But we just want to come in and win. And like you said, the time is now. We have every reason
to get involved.
Let us not just keep saying the elders have failed us. We have failed ourselves. We are failing our children without knowing it. So I think we just need to be ready. Readiness, conviction, self-confidence, and I think the time is just now.
Okay, amazing conversation with our guest in the studio this morning. We've been speaking to Amuda Mbosibudi, who is the coordinator for Africa Rebirth Movement and a public commentator, as well as Frederick Otite, who has a night job of being a comedian, but he's also majorly a public speaker. Thank you for joining us, this morning. Fantastic conversation, but we do have to go on AM Live. AM Live will continue tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. I am Precious Amayo.